$200 and $50,000 both buy a panic room. Same purpose, same house, 250 times the money. At the bottom of that range, you are buying hardware for a closet you already own, about 30 minutes of work with a drill. At the top, you are buying a purpose-built concrete room with its own ventilation and power. Here is what the pricing does not tell you, and it is the point of this whole video. The cheapest tier delivers most of the real-world protection. Not some of it, most of it. Because the threat nearly every household actually faces is somebody kicking a door, and that is a screw-length problem rather than a vault problem. So this is the full range, priced honestly at every tier, what each one buys, what it protects against, and where people spend thousands of dollars on the wrong risk entirely. Start with the definition, because the word panic room makes people picture the wrong thing. It is not a bunker. It is a delay device. The job of a panic room is to buy minutes. Minutes for police to arrive, minutes for an intruder to decide the noise and effort are not worth it, or minutes for a storm to pass overhead. Nothing about it is designed to win a siege. Once you understand that the product you are buying is time, every price on this list starts making sense. Here is what the most basic version actually is, as documented in the security literature. A closet with the hollow core door removed and an exterior-grade solid core door put in its place, fitted with a deadbolt, longer hinge screws, and longer strike plate screws. That is the entry point, a closet you already own with better hardware in it. FEMA states the governing principle plainly, and it applies at every price level. A safe room is like a chain, only as strong as its weakest link. A $4,000 door in a wall you can kick through is a $4,000 decoration. Location matters as much as hardware. The standard recommendation is an interior closet near the bedroom, central in the house, windowless, and reachable fast at 3 in the morning. A room you cannot get to in time is not a safe room. One more decision before any pricing makes sense. There are 2 threat models here, and they pull in opposite directions. Storm shelter means engineered walls, tested assemblies, and debris impact ratings. Intruder delay means the door, the frame, and the seconds it buys you. Some of what you are about to hear serves both. Much of it serves only one. Tier 1 costs less than $200, and it is the most valuable money in this entire video. Go look at the strike plate on any interior door in your house. That is the metal piece screwed into the frame, with the hole the bolt slides into. Pull one screw and measure it. It will be about 3/4 of an inch long. That screw does not reach anything structural. It anchors into the door jamb, which is a thin strip of trim nailed to the framing. When somebody kicks a door, the lock does not fail and the door does not fail. The jamb splits, and it splits along a 2-inch line of soft wood. 1 or 2 solid kicks is all it takes. That is the entire failure mode in almost every forced entry into a residence. The fix is an extended security strike plate, 18 inches long, 16-gauge steel, installed with 3.5-inch hardened screws that pass straight through the jamb and bite into the wall stud behind it. Now, the force of a kick is distributed across 18 inches of framing lumber instead of 2 inches of trim. The physics changes completely, and it changes for the price of a plate and a box of screws. Do the same on the hinge side. Pull the short screws out of every hinge and replace them with 3-inch screws long enough to reach the stud. Doors get pulled and pried as often as they get kicked, then the lock itself. A grade 1 deadbolt with a 1-inch bolt throw is the minimum worth installing, grade 1 being the top rating from the Builders Hardware Manufacturers Association. Total installation time is roughly 30 minutes with a drill. That is Tier 1, and it defeats the overwhelming majority of forced entries. Everything above this price point is buying protection against progressively rarer events. Tier 2 runs $500 to $1,500, and this is where the door itself finally gets addressed. Because Tier 1 reinforced a door that is probably still hollow. Most interior doors in American homes are a thin skin over a cardboard honeycomb core. Reinforcing the frame around a door like that just moves the failure point to the door. So you replace it. A 1 3/4 inch solid core exterior grade slab is the entry level here. Solid wood beats hollow core by an enormous margin, but the security literature is direct about the better option. A steel or composite door with a reinforced frame outperforms wood in this application. The frame gets attention at this tier too. Frame reinforcement kits wrap the jamb in steel and distribute load across the entire opening rather than at the strike alone. Then consider a multi-point lock. Instead of a single bolt at one point, it anchors the door into the frame at several points along its height. That makes it substantially harder to kick in because there is no longer one location where all the force concentrates. Now the thing almost everybody forgets. Look up. Most closets have a drywall ceiling and nothing above it but attic. A room with a hardened door and an open lid is not a room. Anyone willing to spend 2 minutes in your attic can come down through it. Reinforcing or gating the ceiling is not an upgrade at this tier. It is the difference between a sealed space and a box with the top off. Finally, the supply side. FEMA's own guidance specifies an emergency kit inside the room. Water, flashlight, first aid, a printed contact list, and tools capable of forcing a damaged door open from the inside, a crowbar or spreader, because a room you cannot exit after a disaster is its own emergency. Tier 3 runs $3,000 to $7,000, and here is the number that surprises people. That is, the price of the door. Not the room, not the walls. One labeled, tested, installed door assembly. So what does that money actually buy? It buys certification. A rated safe room door is tested against the standards in ICC 500 and FEMA P361, which govern residential and community storm shelters. The testing includes debris impact. The assembly is struck by a wooden missile fired at speed, simulating what a tornado turns lumber into. And the critical word is assembly. The door slab, the frame, the hinges, the latching hardware, and the anchors are all tested together as one unit and certified as one unit. You cannot buy a rated slab and hang it on hardware you picked yourself. The rating belongs to the whole thing or to nothing. Manufacturers producing labeled assemblies in this space include Rhino, USTC, Surviva-Storm, Texas Safe Room Doors, and Storm Shield. Now the rule that voids more labels than any other. Anchor the frame exactly as the published test report specifies. The anchor type, the size, and the spacing are part of what got tested. Substituting fasteners because they were on the shelf, or reaching for powder-actuated fasteners or sleeve anchors that the report does not approve, cancels the certification. A tested door installed wrong is an untested door. There is also an honest distinction the industry makes internally. There are genuinely FEMA-compliant assemblies, and there are heavy steel doors that are strong but not certified. Both can be appropriate. Only one may be advertised as compliant, and the price difference is real. If you are buying for storms, this tier is where the conversation actually starts. Tier 4 starts around $10,000 and runs past $50,000, and at this level you are no longer modifying a room. You are building one. The walls are poured concrete or insulated concrete forms. That means rebar-sized, spaced, and lapped according to an engineered specification, footing dowels properly lapped into the wall, verticals, and every bar centered in the core rather than resting against the foam face where it does nothing. The door frame is cast in place. It gets set plumb, square, and braced, and then the concrete is poured around its anchor straps or cast-in bolts. Electrical conduit, boxes, and ventilation penetrations are installed and capped before the pour because there is no adding them afterward, not easily and not cheaply. Then the systems. Mechanical ventilation, backup power, sometimes independent water storage. At the upper end, communications infrastructure and independent climate control. Two cost realities worth knowing before you price this tier. The first is that retrofitting an existing home costs meaningfully more than building the room during original construction. If you are building new, and this is on your mind at all, this is the cheapest moment it will ever be. The second is that $50,000 is not the ceiling. Custom installations run well past six figures depending on the threat model, the level of comfort, and how far the specification goes. So who is this tier honestly for? People in genuine tornado corridors who want a certified structure, not a hardened closet. People with a specific identified threat, which is a small population, and they usually know exactly who they are. And a substantial number of buyers purchasing at this level for reasons that have very little to do with any threat they have actually assessed. Which brings us to where the money gets wasted. Now, the section that will save you the most money because it is about spending that actively makes a panic room worse. Start with the most common one, lining the walls with steel. It sounds obvious. Steel is strong, so steel on the walls means a stronger room. In practice, it fails twice. Cutting and fitting sheet steel in a finished house is genuinely difficult work for a do-it-yourselfer, so most attempts end up partial or badly fastened, and steel blocks radio frequency. You have just built a room that degrades or kills your cell signal inside the one space in your house where making a phone call is the entire point. Second failure, bolting armor onto an existing door. Adding heavy plate or panel to a standard slab overloads hinges that were never specified for the weight. The door sags, the lock set falls out of alignment, and eventually the bolt stops seating cleanly. You now own a heavy door that does not lock reliably, which is worse than the light door you started with. Third, optimizing for bullet resistance while ignoring forced entry. Ballistic protection is expensive and dramatic, but the attack that actually happens to residential doors is a boot. Buying against the rare threat while leaving the common one unaddressed is the single most expensive mistake in this category. Fourth, a lock that is slow or confusing to operate. Every second spent working out which knob turns which way is a second the room existed to buy you. If it cannot be operated in the dark, by a frightened person, in one motion, it is the wrong lock. And fifth, placement. A panic room in a hard-to-reach corner of the house is one you will not reach in time. A reinforced room inside a space you use daily, a garage, a utility room tends to sit unlocked because locking it interferes with normal life. The best hardware in the world does not fix a room you cannot get to or will not close. Then there are the costs that never appear in a quote, and several of them decide whether the room works at all. Ventilation first, because specialists call it the single most underrated element. Storing objects and preserving people are different engineering problems. A sealed room with a family in it becomes uncomfortable quickly and dangerous eventually. Air has to move, and it has to move without creating an opening somebody can exploit. Communications, second. Verify. Do not assume that you actually have cell signal inside the room, standing where you would stand, with the door closed. Then add a backup that does not depend on a tower, a corded landline, or a radio. Cordless handsets die with the power. Third, and this one is nearly free, FEMA instructs you to register the precise coordinates of your safe room's entrance with your local emergency managers and fire department, and to do it as soon as the room is finished, not as a storm approaches. If debris blocks your exit, that registration is how responders find you quickly. Fourth, provisioning for the real timeline. Experience after major tornado outbreaks indicates occupants may need to remain self-sufficient for days rather than hours. Water, medication, and a plan for that duration. And fifth, the cost nobody budgets because it is not money. Practice. 1 drill per quarter. Every household member briefed on the alert word and on their specific role, so nobody is deciding anything at 3 in the morning. After each drill, fix one thing. A room nobody has rehearsed reaching is a room nobody reaches in time. $200 to $50,000. Here is the whole range on one page. Tier 1, under 200. An extended strike plate, 3.5-inch screws into the stud, 3-inch hinge screws, a grade 1 deadbolt. 30 minutes. Tier 2, 500 to 1,500, a solid core or steel door, a reinforced frame, a multi-point lock, a ceiling that is actually closed, and a supply kit. Tier 3, 3 to 7,000, one labeled tested door assembly, anchored exactly as its report specifies. Tier 4, 10 to 50,000 and beyond, poured or ICF walls, a cast-in frame, mechanical ventilation, backup power. Now the verdict, and it is the reason this video exists. The spending curve and the threat curve do not match. For nearly every household in this country, the realistic scenario is somebody forcing a door, not a tornado, not a targeted attack, a door and a boot. And that scenario is answered almost entirely at Tier 1 for less than $200 in half an hour with a drill you probably already own. Tiers 3 and 4 are not scams. They are real protection, correctly priced, engineered properly, and aimed at threats most families will never encounter. If you live in a tornado corridor, Tier 3 is your starting point rather than your ceiling. If you have a specific identified threat, you already know it. But if you are somewhere in the middle, reading about vault doors while your closet still has 3/4-inch screws in the jamb, you are shopping the wrong end of the range. So here is what to do this week, and it costs nothing. Go to the room you would actually retreat to. Open the door. Look at the strike plate, the metal piece the bolt goes into. Take out one screw and measure it. If it is 3/4 of an inch, you have just found the weakest link in your chain, and you can fix it Saturday for the price of dinner. Tell me in the comments what that screw measured. I read them, and I am curious how many people find the same number. Next time, the 5 places in a house that make terrible panic rooms, including the one almost everybody picks first.